The boy in the faded gray hoodie stood alone on the Brooklyn rooftop, staring at the city skyline as if it held answers he'd never find. His name was Elias Navarro, 21, and every day, rain or shine, he wore that oversized hoodie, its frayed cuffs brushing his knuckles. To the world, it was just a piece of cloth, but to Elias, it was a tether to a ghost. The autumn air bit at his cheeks as he leaned against the rusted railing, the Manhattan lights blurring in his vision. Below, the streets of Williamsburg pulsed with life. Hipsters sipping overpriced coffee, taxis honking, and couples strolling hand in hand. Elias envied their ease, their freedom to exist without carrying a secret heavier than the city itself. He shoved his hands into the hoodie's pocket, fingers tracing the worn stitching, and whispered to no one, "You should have told me, Matteo. I could have helped." 2 years ago, his older brother, Matteo, had died in a car accident on the Long Island Expressway. The police called it a tragedy, a random twist of fate, black ice, a swerve, a crash. But Elias knew better. Matteo had been running from something or someone, and the hoodie Elias now wore was the only piece of him left. It still smelled faintly of Matteo's cologne, a mix of cedar and citrus, and sometimes, when Elias closed his eyes, he could pretend his brother was still here, laughing, teasing him about his messy hair. Elias didn't know why he kept the hoodie on every day. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was love, or maybe it was the weight of the truth he'd found tucked inside its pocket 6 months after Matteo's death. A crumpled note, scrawled in his brother's handwriting. "I love him, Elias. I love Julian. Don't tell Mom." The words had burned into Elias's memory, a secret he'd carried alone, unsure who Julian was or why Matteo had hidden him. Tonight, though, something shifted. Elias had seen a flyer stapled to a lamppost on Bedford Avenue. A vigil for queer youth, organized by a local community center. The words "You Are Enough" were printed in bold, and beneath them, a name caught his eye, Julian Carter. Could it be the Julian? Elias's heart raced. He had to know. The community center was a small, brick building wedged between a bodega and a laundromat, its windows glowing with warm light. Inside, folding chairs were arranged in a circle, filled with people of all ages, their faces a mix of hope and grief. Elias hesitated at the door, his hoodie suddenly feeling too tight, too heavy. He almost turned back, but a voice called out, "Hey, you coming in or just gonna stand there?" The speaker was a young man, about Elias's age, with deep brown skin, short braided hair, and a smile that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. He wore a denim jacket with a rainbow pin on the lapel, and his eyes held a kindness that made Elias's chest ache. I'm coming in," Elias stammered, stepping inside. The air smelled of coffee and lavender candles, and the hum of conversation quieted as he found a seat. "I'm Caleb," the guy said, sliding into the chair next to him. "First time here?" Elias nodded, his throat tight. "I'm Elias. I saw the flyer. I just needed to be here." Caleb tilted his head, studying him. "Something about you says you're carrying a lot. Want to share?" "No pressure." Elias's fingers tightened around the hoodie's cuffs. He wasn't ready to talk about Matteo, not yet. Instead, he scanned the room, searching for the name from the flyer. "Is Julian Carter here?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Caleb's smile faltered, just for a second. "Julian? Yeah, he's one of the organizers. He's over there." He pointed to a man in his mid-20s, lean and tall, with sharp cheekbones and a quiet intensity. Julian was setting up a table with candles and photos, his movements careful, almost reverent. Elias's heart thudded. This was the man Matteo had loved. The man his brother had died for, maybe. He wanted to storm over, demand answers, but his legs felt like lead. Instead, he sat through the vigil, listening to stories of loss and resilience, of love that fought against hate. When Julian spoke, his voice was steady but raw, recounting a love he'd lost 2 years ago, a boy who'd been too afraid to come out, who'd died before they could build a life together. Elias's hands shook. He wanted to scream, "That was my brother," but he stayed silent, the hoodie a heavy shield around him. After the vigil, Elias lingered outside, the October chill seeping through his clothes. Caleb found him again, his breath visible in the cold air. "You okay, man? You look like you saw a ghost." Elias forced a smile. "Something like that." He hesitated, then added, "I need to talk to Julian. It's personal." Caleb raised an eyebrow but didn't push. "He's intense, but he's good people. Just don't expect him to open up right away. He's been through a lot." Elias nodded, his resolve hardening. He approached Julian, who was packing up candles by the curb. "Hey," Elias said, his voice cracking. "I'm Elias. I think you knew my brother, Mateo Navarro." Julian froze, his hands hovering over a candle. For a moment, his face was unreadable. Then his eyes softened with something like grief. "Mateo," he whispered. "You're his little brother?" Elias nodded, his throat burning. "He left a note. In this hoodie." He tugged at the fabric, his voice trembling. "It said he loved you." Julian's breath hitched, and he looked away, his jaw tight. "He did, and I loved him, but he was scared, Elias. Scared of your family, of the world. I tried to help him, but..." His voice broke, and he shook his head. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The weight of Julian's words hit Elias like a tidal wave. He wanted to hate this man, to blame him for Mateo's pain, but all he saw was someone carrying the same grief he did. "Why didn't he tell me?" Elias asked, his voice barely audible. Julian met his eyes, his own glistening. "He wanted to protect you. He thought if he kept it secret, you'd be safe from the fallout." Elias's knees buckled, and he sank onto the curb, the hoodie pooling around him. Julian sat beside him, silent, as the city buzzed around them. For the first time in 2 years, Elias didn't feel alone in his grief. Over the next few weeks, Elias returned to the community center, drawn not just by Julian but by Caleb, whose easy laughter and quiet strength chipped away at Elias's walls. They started meeting outside the center, grabbing coffee at a tiny shop on Driggs Avenue or walking through McCarran Park, where the leaves crunched underfoot. Caleb was openly gay, unapologetic, and his confidence made Elias question everything he'd been taught growing up in a strict Catholic household. One evening, as they sat on a park bench, Caleb nudged Elias's shoulder. "You ever gonna take that hoodie off? It's like your armor or something." Elias chuckled, but his smile faded. "It was Mateo's. He wore it every day, too. I didn't know why until I found the note." Caleb's eyes softened. "You don't have to carry it all alone, you know? Whatever it is, you can tell me." Elias hesitated, then pulled the note from the hoodie's pocket, its edges worn from months of handling. He handed it to Caleb, who read it silently, his expression shifting from curiosity to understanding. "Mateo was my brother," Elias said, his voice thick. "He loved Julian, but he never told me. I found out after he died, and I don't know how to let him go." Caleb set the note down gently, his hand resting on Elias's. "You don't have to let him go. You just have to make room for yourself, too." The warmth of Caleb's hand sent a jolt through Elias, and for the first time, he noticed how close they were, how Caleb's eyes held a spark that made his heart race. He pulled his hand back, flustered, and mumbled, "I'm not, I don't know what I am." Caleb smiled, unbothered. "That's okay. You don't have to know right now. Just be you, Elias. That's enough." As winter crept into Brooklyn, Elias began to unravel the truth about Mateo's life. Julian shared stories of their stolen moments, Late-night drives to Coney Island, secret kisses in empty subway cars, promises to run away together. But Mateo's fear of their family's judgment had kept him trapped, and the night of the crash, he'd been driving to meet Julian, desperate to escape. The more Elias learned, the more he saw himself in Mateo. His own confusion, his own fear of being seen. He started opening up to Caleb, sharing memories of Mateo's laughter, his love for old jazz records, his dream of opening a bakery. And slowly, Elias began to share pieces of himself, too. His love for sketching, his fear of disappointing his parents, his growing feelings for Caleb. One night, at a queer poetry slam in Bushwick, Caleb took the stage, his voice steady as he read a poem about love as resistance, about choosing joy despite pain. Elias watched, heart pounding, as Caleb's eyes found his in the crowd. When Caleb stepped off the stage, Elias didn't think. He just acted, pulling Caleb into a kiss that felt like coming home. The crowd cheered, but Elias barely heard them. All he felt was Caleb's warmth, the weight of the hoodie lighter than it had ever been. By spring, Elias had started wearing the hoodie less, letting it hang in his closet beside Mateo's old records. He and Caleb were inseparable now, their relationship a quiet rebellion against the silence that had defined Elias's life. They volunteered at the community center, helping queer kids find their voice, their courage. Julian became a friend, too, his grief softening as he saw Elias carry Mateo's love forward. One evening, Elias stood on the same rooftop where his story began, Caleb beside him. The skyline glittered, and Elias felt a peace he hadn't known in years. "I used to think this hoodie was all I had left of him," he said, his voice steady. "But I was wrong. Mateo's love, it's in me, in you, in every kid we help." Caleb squeezed his hand. "He'd be proud of you, Elias. You're living the life he was too afraid to." Elias smiled, tears in his eyes. "Yeah, and I'm not afraid anymore." He didn't need the hoodie to carry Mateo anymore. His brother's love, his courage, his truth. They were woven into Elias's heart, stronger than any fabric. And as he stood there, hand in hand with Caleb, he knew he was finally free to love, to live, to be.